Well, let's talk about the scope of this problem. 4.3 million adults chose to leave their work, their professional work, in August. 4.4 million chose to leave their work in September. Almost 1 million of those folks were in the hospitality industry. 26% of them left with no job lined up to go to. 52% of the million folks in the hospitality industry left their job with no job lined up to go to. So, before we can solve a problem, and we will this morning, understand the strategies that solve this problem and prevent the next time, because none of us think that we are finished facing the stressors that might come down the road in this decade. We have to figure out what's the truth of this problem in this industry. And while I can research your industry and feel for you coming from healthcare, the only industry with higher rates of loss than the hospitality industry in the last few years, I'd rather you define it for yourself and for each other. And to do that, I'm going to ask you to do something, which is mean at this hour, I know, I apologize, but I'm going to ask you to dive in with me because we will be richer and have a better conversation for it. Would you bring out your phone or a tablet or a computer or any device you have that gets the internet? Gotta love a speaker who says, please be on your phone. Would you go to the website menti.com, M like Mary, E-N-T-I.com. When you do that, it will ask you for a code for your event. And that code is at the top of our screen. I'm going to read it to you. That code is 7853-2094. I'll explain that again in a minute. When you go there, you're going to see this question: what are your obstacles to retention? I want you primarily to be thinking about teams you work with or people that work for you, although we will, in this time that we have together, talk about how to retain clients and customers as well. But right now, think about the people that work with you and for you, and give me a word or two or three, and you can answer more than once. What are your obstacles to retention? So how you do this, for people who are like, whoa, I was not awake enough for technology this morning, menti.com, M-E-N-T-I.com, and when it asks you for a code, that code is 7853-2094. So we're seeing salary come up the largest. That means the most people are putting in that. So pay and salary and benefits. Overworked, growth, culture, life balance, advancement, opportunity. Other offers, diversity, they're rolling in. What I want you to do is speak for yourself and also see how do what you're saying line up with what your peers and your colleagues are experiencing. So the ones that are coming up tops: salary, pay, compensation, benefits, workload, burnout, opportunity and culture, and growth, and overworked. By the way, if any of the slides that we create together, and keep this window open because we're going to do some more work together as we spend time together this morning, is interesting to you, at the end I'm going to give you an opportunity to let me know that you want these slides. You're welcome to have all the slides that we're creating together. So now I want to say to you that of the hospitality workers who left, almost 1 million just in September, the research unequivocally shows that although 26% of people who've left their work, 27 million adults who've intentionally left their work so far in 2021, 26% of them cite burnout. In the hospitality industry, it's the top reason. 40% cite burnout. So let's talk about that. Burnout is a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress. Nobody's shocked so far. I don't see any shocked faces. That hasn't been successfully managed. That doesn't necessarily mean by your manager. It means by the person, the organization, life in general, that's characterized by 3 things. See if any of these ring for you. Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. Are you hearing about that? Seeing that? Feeling that? increased mental distance from one's job, feeling a sense of disconnection, feelings of negativism or cynicism about your work. Anybody seeing that? Hearing that? Feeling that? Reduced professional efficacy. You're not as good at your job, or your employee isn't as good at their job as they used to be, or they don't feel a sense of efficacy. That is the ability to create positive change. So why? Luckily, because this is such a pervasive problem, there's been a ton of research about this. And it turns out that although you may be hearing from folks that salary, benefits, compensation, pay, all those words that you gave me are the reasons, that is the smallest reason. When we survey people and they're not talking to their boss, who could say, all right, I'll give you $1 million to stay, it turns out that material incentives are the least of it. There's some pandemic epiphanies that people have blamed for this, and then something I'm going to explain called the experience effects of what we've all been through. So first, let's talk for a minute about these material incentives. Money can't buy you love. There are always jobs that will pay more. Right now, that is the reality. Setting aside compensation from the government, because that is fading out in many states and is going to be a diminishing obstacle, although for sure it's been an obstacle, no question. It turns out that material incentives hold people on average for 3 months longer. Yep, I can get you that benefit that you asked for. Yes, I can give you an increase in your pay. Yes, I can put you on a path towards earning more or a better opportunity here within our organization. On average, that holds people for 3 months more. It's a little bit like breaking up with someone who you say, you just don't spend enough time with me, and they say, okay, I'll spend a little bit more time with you, and they do, and after a few months, you're like, I guess that wasn't it. Pandemic epiphanies are real. We have been through an upheaval unlike any our generations have seen. Even the polio epidemic, which kept people at home, by the way, and had kids learning from their living rooms over the radio if you thought Zoom was bad, it turns out that this is the most upheaval that we have seen as a world and as a country, at least since World War II. Very few of us were working adults in World War II. So there have been some real changes for people, a reshuffling of their priorities, but even more so, a reshuffling of their roles, what they understand their obligations to be, less to children, because we were pretty clear about our obligations there, but to aging family members and close friends and neighbors. So as those roles became more clear, people started to weigh their attention, their focus, their commitment to their job differently. The priority that we've had in our country of work comes first stopped being the case for many, many people. And because the fear hasn't gone away, that isn't fading so fast. Which brings me to something that, unless you happen to study economy for fun, you might not have heard of, and that's called the experience effect. Our brain, I promise not to get too sciencey on you this morning. I get that it's early. Our brains have neural pathways dug by traumatic experiences. Not just having those experiences, like a job loss or a financial upset in your family, but by learning about them. A trauma is defined not in the colloquial, oh, that was traumatic, but in the actual medical definition. A trauma is something that interrupts your core beliefs or personal sense of safety. Most people experienced financial trauma in the last couple of years, because even if they were lucky enough to keep their job, their company was lucky enough to be successful, it became deeply clear to everyone that they were much closer to the edge of that precipice than they thought they had been. And that effect lasts years. The neural pathways that are dug in when you learn about that truth, the effects of that last for years, even if it didn't happen to you, and even if you are given evidence to the contrary. So even if I can prove to you on my balance sheet that we are doing better than we ever have and we are headed for a ton of growth, that experience effect caused certain chemicals to release in my brain, in the amygdala, if you're interested, that base my decisions on fear. So when you are thinking about how am I going to solve this problem, your company's checkbook is not going to be the answer. What is? I'm going to talk to you about 3 strategies. The first is really simple. Request. You need information that you don't have. What I've just said to you is basically, you might not know what you think you know about why people leave, right? So when you don't know what you don't know, you have to ask. You have to ask something as basic as, how are you? That question, and I consider this a real advantage of the pandemic, has stopped being rhetorical. It stopped being a nicety that we say and move on before the answer's even out of that person's mouth. And so I'm asking you, would you go to Menti, please? And you can write more than a word or two here, and it's anonymous, so nobody knows what you said. So will you dig for a little bit of transparency and authenticity? How are you? Stressed. Fair. Best. Happy, just fine. Tired and burnt out. Great, fatigued. Unappreciated. Hey, Shad, can you scroll down for me so that I can see more as they roll in? Thank you. Cautiously optimistic. Upended. Overwhelmed. Engaged. Disappointed. Depressed, stressed, tired. I'm good. Overwhelmed. That was all in one answer. You can be all those things. Hungover. Feel ya. This is the family doctor in me talking. Drink some water. Solves everything. Exhausted. Oh, a couple for hungover. Nice. Blessed. You can be blessed and overwhelmed and stressed too, right? Too early to tell. Fair enough. Frustrated. All of the above. Unprepared. I can help with that. When you ask a question, you improve retention when you act on the answer. Just asking, that's shenanigans. Asking and making it clear that you didn't care, you were just asking because you're supposed to ask, that drives down connection. That decreases the likelihood that this person will have loyalty to you, to the mission of your company, to any of the things that you want them to have fealty or connection to. So in medicine, we say, never do a test unless you're going to do something with the answer. Please stop asking people how they're doing if you are sure you do not have time to attend to the answer. Instead, use transparency. That, by the way, Gen X and Millennials and Gen Z, most of your teams, really value authenticity. So say, Robert, I really want to know how you are, and right this second, I'm afraid I don't have time to really listen to the answer. Can we connect later today? That builds more connection than, oh, how are you? Feel the difference? You don't have to have it in you to help and listen to everyone all the time. But you do have to be a little bit more intellectually honest about that than we used to be. So now I want to ask you, about what decisions, scheduling, focus, projects, about what could you ask input from your staff and have the bandwidth to listen to the answer? Could you come back to Menti? We're going to create another word cloud. So I'm looking for 1 or 2 or 3 word answers. But think really, the team that you're most worried about retaining, the ones who, because they go to work every day, your job is a tiny bit easier, what could you ask them and actually listen to the answers? Doesn't mean you're going to do, I'm not asking you to turn your workplaces into democracies. They shouldn't be. I'm asking you to be able to listen to the answer. Work flexibility, roles, responsibilities. Are we supporting you? Strategy. Environmental comfort. How can I help? Fantastic. Support, resources. How do we increase sales? Oh, sorry, Shad. I don't know why my screensaver keeps coming up. Those are my 4 kids. How do you feel secure? What could we do better? What do you need? What can I help you with? What's going on in your personal life? Asking them about service, about positivity, about what's working, about whether they feel valued and how they feel valued. The first way that we improve retention, and I'm giving you 1 minute on this, and I gave 3,000 words on it in a piece that I just wrote with an author for Forbes magazine. So if you want to see more about it, email me. I'll send you the link. But really, asking with the intention of listening to, not even necessarily making change, but listening to the answer, is actually the first thing that employees say drive their fealty, their loyalty, to a boss or a workplace. You have probably heard people don't leave jobs, they leave people. That's not entirely true. That's really too simplistic. But people stay for people. When we research and we ask, when you've been in a job where the job wasn't a great fit, the benefits weren't what you were looking for, why did you stay? Mentoring, connection, and relationships are the top 3 answers, which in a lot of cases are really all the same answer. So asking, and asking about something where you can really listen to the answer. You know, nobody said on here, how much should I pay you? Because probably that's pretty set. I couldn't do much with that answer. But what else could I do to help you? What are your priorities? What strategy do you think we should be employing? There are a lot of excellent answers. Then, you've asked, you've taken all that in. How do you respond? Let's assume that you heard something you didn't want to hear. You asked, do you feel valued? And they said, no. And you're like, I don't want to ask this question. Why do people not usually ask a question? Because they're afraid of the answer, or they're afraid they won't know what to do with the answer. This is why people don't give their kids bad news or tell them about stuff going on in the world. Same 2 reasons. They're afraid of what they're going to get told or asked back, and they're not sure what they're going to say. So let me tell you that there is an algorithm for how to respond. The first is gratitude. You can always, no matter what you've heard, somebody says, I'm so glad you asked because F this and forget that and I hate this. You can authentically, no sarcasm, no snark, thank you for being willing to share that truth with me. I appreciate that you told me. Even if you don't like what they said, even if you don't like their tone, their attitude, if you can authentically, because adults are almost as good as kids at sniffing out sarcasm, right? If you can authentically say, okay, I really appreciate that you let me know what's going on for you. The next piece is empathy, and empathy is hard. We have a lie in our society. That lie is, if you're a decent person, expressing empathy shouldn't be hard for you. Conversely, something that's even more damaging that we believe, if you struggle to express empathy, you might be a jerk. Neither of those things are true. And we're going to dive a little bit more into that in about 5 minutes. But empathy. So gratitude, doesn't matter what you said, I can thank you for telling me the truth. Empathy, you are struggling, and I see that. Can always give that without any answers, without any solutions, without you having the authority to make the change this person would like to see. This person wants you to, close your offices and allow them to work their in-person hospitality job from their couch. It could never happen. You can still express gratitude that they told you where they are. Instead of just walking out the door, that's what most people do. You know the 2 words that people have not heard a lot in management in the last year? They don't hear the words, I quit. People just ghost. They just leave. Frontline workers just leave. Other people lie. Oh, I'm really worried about my family member, and I just, so sorry, would love to stay. None of those. They're not willing to give honest feedback. So if you can offer gratitude for at least knowing what's really happening here. And empathy, you are struggling, and I feel that. I see that. I notice you. And then safety. And this is harder. I need you to think about what you would need to do to make it safe for people who work with you or for you to actually tell you how they feel. That is a whole other talk. That is work that I do with companies. But making it safe, which at a bare minimum means you won't be fired for telling me what you're really going through. And digging down to see if you yourself can say, I won't treat you differently if you tell me the truth. And then lastly, tying all of this. Mind you, I've given them no solutions, right? I haven't fixed anything. I am still responding in a way that has been proven to drive connection and fealty. The only response that I'm going to recommend you give is one that you can authentically, transparently give, even if you can't fix that problem, even if you can't do what they are implying they would like you to do or actually asking you to do, and that is tying the situation that you guys are in at the moment, whatever that is. And I'm going to use that example if somebody says, I want to be able to do this job from my couch, to your mission. Your mission as a company is not a meta-esoteric idea. It has got to be your why. Do you know who's driven by why? Millennials and Gen Z. They are driven by purpose. It is their number one reason for employment above compensation. You can use your mission with that person to find options. So instead of saying, you can't work from your couch because our mission is to give excellent service to people and they are physically in our facility, or you have to take this IT thing to our clients, that's our mission, you say, okay, let's go back to our mission, and I hope for your sake that it's more tweet length than Constitution of the United States length. And if it is Constitution of the United States, go back to your leadership after this conference and say, could we get the Cliff Notes for our mission, because I learned how to use it to increase retention, but it's too long right now. You can use your mission to find options with that person. I don't want you to be the fixer, because then you have to fix every problem. I want you to bring that why to your employee or your team and say, what are the options that are within the parameters of our mission to solve this problem that you're having? You can use your mission to figure out who are your emerging leaders in your group. Who are the people with both the drive and the professional skills, but also the social credibility to help other people be more mission-driven. And you can use your mission to connect your staff. The work that you're doing and that you're asking them to do matters beyond the company's bottom line. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you how I know that, and I'm not in your industry. Your industry, all of your industries, serve to help people relax, connect. There has never been a time in the pandemic of mental distress that we are experiencing where people needed that more. Every single thing that you employ someone to do serves the mission of your company, and the mission of your company serves to improve the mental health of our society. When I say that, I'm seeing a bunch of people going like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense to me. I hear that. Have you mentioned it? Have you connected that for your employees? Because it doesn't just feel good, it is good. And doing good is the top driver of retention. Now, let's talk about my passion and the thing that you can do not only to help keep people and heal people a little from what they've been through, but this is the prevention work as well that will help you going forward, whatever is coming for your company. So I want to ask you, when you think about resilience, and when I say whatever's coming, I'd like for you to tell me what change is looming over your staff right now. What's coming that they don't know about or that they do know about? And it might be personal, it might be company-wide, it could be industry-wide, it could be society-wide. What's stressing them right now? Come on over to Menti. You can give me those longer answers here if you want to. It doesn't have to be one word or two words. Automation is coming, for sure. Isolation is continuing. Uncertainty, chip shortages, realigning priorities. Reorganization, performance, acquisition, new team structure. Shad, will you roll down for me? Will you scroll down? Product stability, stability in general. I like that. There'd be maybe nothing to scroll down to yet. You know that there is change coming. I didn't only ask what difficulties are coming, although I see that a lot of you gave me difficulties, but I specifically asked what change is coming. And that's because all change is stressful. All change. Even the stuff you want. Even the stuff you worked towards, hoped for, dreamed about. Personally, professionally, no difference. All change is stressful, and here is why. Our brains have 1 million functions and one job. Their job is to keep us alive. Good news, we are all currently alive. That makes our brains skeptical of every single change. Every one. And not only every change we actually experience, every change we think might happen. Could you raise your hand for me if you've ever been in the front seat of a car, driver or passenger, when the driver hit the brakes and your seatbelt locked? Had that experience? Okay, driver hits the brakes, your seatbelt locks. The seatbelt doesn't know or care if the driver is avoiding a 4-car accident or reaching in the back seat for a jacket, right? Car doesn't know, car doesn't care. If you're going a certain speed and hit the brakes with certain force, the seatbelt locks. Well, our brains do the exact same thing. Every single time our brain thinks something might change, we go through 3 seatbelt locks, 3 safety gates, every single time. The corner store that I go to switched to Pepsi from Coke. Whoa, what could I lose? Wow, why did they do that? Are they going to keep doing that? Is this just a trial? Would they go back to Coke? This makes me really uncomfortable. My company might shut down. Wow, what could I lose? Do we have to shut down? Was this mismanagement? Are they just saying this to me, but they're not letting everybody else go? This is going to completely change things for me and be incredibly uncomfortable. We longed for an end to the pandemic. Many of us worked for, hoped for, prayed for, dreamed about an end to the pandemic. Now, spoiler alert, I'm a family doctor, so I'm tremendously pro-vax. But it doesn't matter what you think about the vaccine. You will recognize that when scientists said, we have a solution, everybody in the world went, wait, what could I lose? Can I trust it? What about this makes me tremendously uncomfortable? You apply for a new job. You tell everybody you've applied for it because it would be amazing. Your boss and mentor thinks you are the perfect person for this job. They're incredibly supportive. You wait, you interview, you get the email. It says you got the job. And even as you're feeling happy, relieved, proud, excited, your brain goes, wait, what could we lose? Will we still be able to go to lunch at the same time? Can we still sit outside and eat that lunch? Because that's been something I really liked about the pandemic. Will I still have such an easy time with the person I'm assigned to in HR, or will that person change? What will I lose? Will this take up more time and I'll lose some time with my people that aren't at work? Did they really mean to send me that email? Can I trust this? I gotta read that again. Did it really say I had the job, or just that I made it to the next level, they were still considering me? Should I mean, what if it doesn't say in the contract what it said it would say? And even as I'm starting to believe I really got the job, and it really is gonna be what they said it would be, what's gonna be uncomfortable about this? Is my physical office space gonna change? Is my schedule gonna change? Is what I have to wear gonna change? Boy, my new boss dresses nicer than my old boss. Do I have to too? Our brains go through these 3 safety mechanisms of loss and distrust and discomfort. Hey, leaders, when you announce a change to your staff, no matter how great a change, stop being betrayed that they experience loss and distrust and discomfort. I'm a family doctor, so I do a lot of well checks on kids. I do a lot of reflex checks, right? So I have a kid sitting at the end of the table, and I use my reflex hammer, and I do this. If I'm standing right in front of them, what's going to happen to me? I get kicked. Is that the kid's fault? What was I doing standing right in front of them, right? I'm going to get a Reebok in the thigh. As a leader, when you even suggest change, stop feeling betrayed that people express any loss or distrust or discomfort. Just stand to the side. Those are normal reflexes. When you tell your clients about a change that they asked for, that you pushed through to make them happy, and they react with any loss or distrust or discomfort, don't be mad. You're just getting kicked by the reflex. It's okay. Because this isn't the end of the cycle. The end of the cycle is choice, engagement, and reunification. Resilience is not the ability to bounce back from difficulty. Resilience is the ability to navigate change and come through it pointed towards your mission. As an organization, it's the ability to navigate change and come through it pointed towards your mission. As an individual, it's the ability to navigate change and come through it the kind of person you want to be, pointed towards your mission, right? Same idea, but for a human. As soon as you remember that you have choices, you have the choice to not stop at that corner store, get your Coke somewhere else. You have the choice to take that job or not take that job. You have the choice, take the vaccine, not take the vaccine, wait on the vaccine. As soon as you remember not what your choices are even, just that you have choices, you are behaving in a resilient way. As soon as you engage with some of those choices, and they don't have to be the right choice, you just have to be engaging with them, then you are headed towards reunification. By the way, it doesn't mean you stop feeling the loss or distrust or discomfort. Our brains don't work that way. When you start to think about what choices do I have, you engage your ventromedial prefrontal cortex, that's as sciencey as I will be, up here, which quiets the amygdala, which is all fear-based, but it doesn't turn it off completely because your brain's number one function is to keep you alive, and fear does that. But as soon as you remember you have choices, the loss, distrust, and discomfort get quieter, and then you can engage with those choices and you reunify. Not necessarily with the owner of the bodega selling Pepsi, not necessarily with the boss of your new job. You reunify with your mission, the kind of person that you want to be. So I say all that, but now I want to ask you, when you see someone, and I want you to think about the people who work for you and work with you, when you see someone acting in what you think is a resilient way, what are they doing? What does resilience look like in people? What are they doing or saying or showing you? They're showing you a positive attitude, kindness, smiles, confidence, asking questions, surviving, strength, positivity, possibilities, perspective. They're engaged, they're optimistic, they're respectful. So I think we can agree that we would like our people to be more resilient. We would like our clients and our customers to be more resilient. So how do we help them do that? Okay, I don't know if this person is supporting or pushing someone to be more resilient, but it turns out that there are 4 strategies that move other people towards resilience, that move other people through some of that loss, distrust, and discomfort towards choice and engagement. We're going to talk about each of those. I said we were going to get back to empathy, and here it is. Empathy is hard. So I want you to tell me, because there are 7, and you only see 6 here, 7 cognitive barriers to expressing empathy effectively. They are not knowing what to say, wanting to just fix the problem so the person doesn't have to be upset in the first place, feeling responsible for the problem, right? I'm the one who put that new schedule in place, and that new schedule is frustrating you. So it's hard for me to express empathy because I feel guilty that I put that in place in the first place. Not understanding why they're upset, disagreeing with the emotion that they're having, or disagreeing with the behavior that came out of the emotion that they're having. So you can vote for up to 3. What do you feel is hard about expressing empathy in a work setting? So I adore that all of you are leaders, because wanting to just fix the problem and move on always comes up as one of the top. But it turns out that when we ask adults in research, when you go to another adult, even someone in power over you, with a problem, do you want empathy, advice, intervention, or a combination? 85% of the time they say they just want empathy. And empathy does indeed allow you to move through loss and distrust and discomfort more quickly. So here's the hack. You matter, so I care about what you're going through. You don't have to understand what they're feeling. You don't have to agree with what they're feeling. You can hate what they did because of what they're feeling. But if you can authentically say, you matter, or you're valued, I care about what you're going through. No sarcasm, no snark. That will help your customers when they say, listen, I know you came up with that entire new fix just for me and my people, and I really appreciate it, but I am so swamped, I can't even talk to you about it, maybe next quarter. Don't start with why it'll make their life easier. Don't start with, but I did this for you. Start with empathy. When people feel seen and heard, it changes, I won't put you through the details, but it changes the chemicals in their brain and allows them to hear you differently. The second strategy is information, but hey, data folks, not just information. Not just sourced information, transparently sourced information. And transparently sourced information isn't enough, or all of my patients would have taken the vaccine, right? Because I can give them all the transparently sourced information in the world. But for many people, this is one of the strategies that they need. Why you're doing what you're doing, your employees as well as your customers. Why you're doing what you're doing, where you got the information that led you to that, where they did the research or got the information that led them to tell you what you believe and why you trust it. That is a strategy that moves people towards resilience, and much more effectively when we add in processing time. The faster I ask you to make a decision or navigate something that you don't like, a change, the less resilient you will be. You have to decide right now, buy these windows for your new home. It's super cheap. Do it right now. Do it, do it, do it. Will you do it right now? No. Processing time makes all the difference. It is one of the ingredients that leads to better decision making. So every time, even though I just said, even telling people about the possibility of a change is stressful, you have good people. Many of them can do hard things. The more lead time you can give most people about that automation, about that upcoming change, about the fact that there's a supply chain issue affecting you, and you haven't figured out exactly how you're going to navigate it, but definitely the effects are going to be felt. Processing time makes a difference. The last strategy is the one that is hardest for most good leaders to give, and that is autonomy. Autonomy is not what 12-year-olds think it is. It is not being allowed to do whatever you want. Autonomy is choice. Every time I can put any choice in someone else's hands, how they do something, when they do something, with whom, what color it is, what it smells like, any choice that I can offer, the easier a time they have engaging their ventromedial prefrontal cortex and figuring out that they can dampen down all that fear from their amygdala and engage and be resilient. It may not be the choice they want, but any choice, big or small, is a strategy that chemically moves people towards resilience. Clients, customers, employees, peers, spouses, children. So I want to ask you, how might each of these benefit a team you're leading? I asked you to think about what changes were looming. So even if you didn't write it down, I'm going to ask you to think now about that change that's looming. How much do you think each of these might benefit your team in navigating that change? From strongly disagree to strongly agree. Expressing empathy, that's you, by the way, expressing empathy. Transparently sourced information, processing time, and reasonable autonomy. I'm pleased for everybody who's given expressing empathy the lion's share, because you can always do that. It does not matter what the problem is. Sometimes you can give transparently sourced information, and sometimes you can give processing time, but it's a fast-moving industry and we cannot always do that. Occasionally, sometimes you can give some reasonable autonomy. That takes the hard leadership work to figure out, what did I just want to do the way I wanted to do it, but it could be changed, impacted, influenced by my people. You can always give empathy. Employees do not retain themselves. They don't always leave because of the people they're with, but they are far more likely to stay because of the actions and the behaviors and the empathy of the people with whom they work. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not just here because we could finally have an event in person, or because there's one vendor that you want to see, or even colleagues that you were super excited to go watch them get thrown off a mechanical bull. You are here because you know that time outside people's own four walls, in which they have been quite honestly isolated and trapped for the last year and a half, might be the thing that saves our society's life collectively. The work that you do to help all of us get a fresh perspective, a clean pair of sheets that we didn't wash, a meal that we didn't cook, and to see our people with new eyes because we're in a new place, and to make that experience somewhere between pleasant and amazing, it is exactly what we need as a country and as a society. And I thank you very much for your work, and I thank you for your time and your attention. I mentioned that if you wanted to, you could ask me for the slides we created together and some of this information. You'll do that, if you choose to, by going back to Menti right now. Your answers will not appear on our screen. It will give you a chance to send me your email, and I will give you that information by end of day tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, and have a great conference.